seen, especially in the Cotswold, the importance of heritage improvements and heritage control over properties in those countries. And certainly we've seen that here and appreciate it greatly. So thank you very much to the committee and especially to the staff. They're wonderful to work with and have been very knowledgeable and helpful. So we appreciate that greatly. We purchased 113 Johnson in 1996 from the Masonic Order, and it had been utilized to that point as a residence and was in pretty rough shape. But we had intended to do a little bit of improvement, but it turned out we had to gut it back to the stone and rebuild it out. So the major improvements in the past have been interiorly approached. First, we utilized it as an office and orthodontic office. And when I retired just before COVID in the beginning of 2020, we decided to convert it to a residence. The exterior needed a lot of work. We had previously owned a property on Days Road, 484 Days Road, that was the Peter Day home, and it was designated while we were working out of that office as well. So we've worked with Heritage for many years. We've also realized recently over the last 5 years that much exterior work had to be done. So a lot of our work with the committee has been exteriorly with pointing and improvements. And presently we're dealing with a situation where our property has been trespassed by vagrants. And it started out as grocery carts full of debris being spilled on the property, and we would have to clean it up and get the police, Kingston Police, to help us to get the trespassers off the property. Recently, it has become a little more intrusive in that there's a daycare next door to us in the property that was the Masonic Hall, or originally the Congregationalist Church. The problem was that the homeless were coming in and staying overnight and leaving all their debris. And then when the daycare moved in, they put garbage bins next to our property, and the homeless would come and go through the garbage at night for food that was from the daycare and, for some reason, the diapers. And they would take these and spread them over our property to sort through them. And again, we would have to clean this up. To help control this, we tried to isolate the area behind and to the Greek church side of the Greek Orthodox Church side of our building by putting up a plastic, or a vinyl, I guess is a better description, trellis locked to the building and to the fence, not to the building, it was to a steel post, and to the post office fence behind. When we came the next morning, I was unlocking the back door and I noticed that it looked as if somebody had been sick to themselves. There was white all over the ground, and then I noticed that the trellis had been
Mr. O'Neill, 30 seconds?
I'm sorry?
30 seconds just to
Okay,
wrap up?
yes,
Thank
okay.
you.
So what had happened was the individual who invaded the property had set the trellis on fire, and it had spread to a drain across the property. So we replaced the trellis. The next day I came back and the trellis had again been set on fire. Fortunately, we had just finished veneering the back addition with stone, so the rest of the building was not set on fire. The current issue is that I should say that we rented a steel construction gate to put on this area, and that seems to have controlled the invasion of the back of the property. However, they then utilized the area adjacent to our property, our back door, I should say, for sleeping, eating, and defecating, unfortunately.
Mr. O'Neill, I'm going to have to cut you off there, but thank you very much for your comments. And I
Thanks.
do believe most of the material is in the report, but I appreciate you speaking to your application. Thank you.
One more comment. So we request that the committee allow us to move the fence a little further up toward the street. We had originally wanted just the backyard isolated, but we asked that they allow us to move it a little closer to the sidewalk and the street to prevent invasion. Thank you. Thank you very much for your...
Thank you. Okay, so I will go back to the committee to see if there are any questions, because I got that out of order. Please forgive me. It was a long night last night. Any questions from committee? All right, seeing none. Any questions or comments from the public? Are there any members of the public? Ian? Sorry. Mr.
There
Clerk.
is just one member of the public in person, and no wishes to speak, so we are good to move on, Madam Chair.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so I need someone from the committee to move the motion. All right, so we've got Alex and I've got Jane as a seconder. Any final comments? All right, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. All right. Thank you, and thank you for coming. Okay, so we have no Stream 3 permits, so we're now on to Part E of this section, Notice of Intent to Designate under the Ontario Heritage Act. So the addresses in question are 160 Belmont Avenue, 2518 Highway 38, 2643 Burbrook Road, 344 to 350 Bagot Street, 35 Johnson Street, 53 Princess Street, 771 Kingston Mills Road, 78 to 86 Princess Street, 85 Princess Street, and 65 Kensington Avenue. So can I please have staff introduce the application?
Could you correct that? 67? It's 67.
Okay, yeah, it is 67, and it says that here. So 67 Kensington Avenue. Thank you, Peter. Okay, so staff, would you please introduce the application with the corrected address?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report that's before you is indeed the evaluation of 10 properties, as you outlined, to be determined if they have cultural heritage value or interest. As these properties were found to exceed the threshold established by the Province of Ontario for designation under the Heritage Act, staff are recommending the serving to the owners of the Notice of Intent to Designate for the 10 properties that the Chair has outlined. The owners of these properties have been provided with the draft designation bylaws and general information on heritage designations by registered mail. The owners were also invited to an open house on August 30th that was hosted by heritage staff. I wanted to quickly mention a matter that has come up related to interior heritage attributes. It was discussed at one of our previous committee meetings, and more recently as part of the drafting of these bylaws. So to confirm, staff have not and likely will not enter any of these buildings on this batch of designations and any of the upcoming batches of those currently listed group that we're working through. Therefore, interior heritage attributes are not going to be included on the designation bylaws. The intent of noting the interior features on the list of non-attributes was to provide a level of comfort and assurance to property owners, as this is one of the most common questions we get from property owners. So staff have, however, heard the concerns of committee and the working group and members of public as well regarding the city's ability to add interior attributes in the future, and have amended our bylaw template going forward to remove all interior features as noted on the non-list. So the notice of intent to designate is before you, and the draft designation bylaws have been prepared in accordance with the recent amendments to the Heritage Act. If committee wishes me to elaborate on the heritage value of any of these particular properties, I'm happy to do that. Alternatively, all of the statements of significance are included in the draft bylaws in exhibits B through K of the staff report. And if you don't want to read through all those, a summary of those heritage values is included in the draft notice, which is exhibit A. Staff are recommending proceeding with the serving of the notice of intent to designate on the subject properties to ensure their conservation and to enable staff at the city to provide support and resources to the owners and tenants through heritage permitting process and through our heritage grant program. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So now I'm going to move to questions from the committee. Does anyone have a question with regards to the designated, or the properties we're looking to designate? Jane?
I hope you can correct me if we got to get this motion on the floor, correct? No. Oh, it's on the floor? Oh, perfect. Okay, so I would actually like to put forth a motion to amend, and
Through you, Madam Chair, the motion is not on the floor.
Oh, it's not on the
So this
floor.
is
Okay.
just for general questions and comments.
Okay, no comment.
All right, so it looks like there's no questions. Does the public have any questions or comments? All right, Don, you know the drill.
Don Taylor. This is a very general question. I think Mr. Leary is aware of this issue, very minor. But the designation bylaws say that the city can install a plaque in a location and style determined by the city in consultation with the owner. And there's a concern that the owner may control the style of the plaque. Certainly the owner has some rights to control location, but I think it would be unfortunate if there was no staff control on style of these heritage plaques. So I wonder if you could comment on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Don. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just trying to find the clause. I can't seem to find the clause. But I do know what the member is referring to, Madam Chair. There's a statement in the draft bylaws, each of the draft bylaws, that refers to heritage recognition plaques that we typically put on protected properties. They're a fixed design and style that the city does. We endorsed them years ago. And the clause is to remind owners, essentially, that this is something we may do in the future. Saying that, however, these are still private properties, and we're not likely to put a plaque on a property that the owner doesn't want. On the alternative, we're not likely to put a plaque on the property that the city doesn't meet our standards. So it's a process that we discuss with the owners. If they have information that we didn't know, we would certainly look at that and possibly include that. But at the end of the day, it's the city's discretion on what type of plaque and where the plaque goes at the end of the day, because essentially we're paying for it. So, I don't see the concern. I understand it, and I think we are happy as staff to leave it as is. My colleague with legal services is here, and perhaps there's a legal interpretation on that clause that I'm not aware of, but it's left at the city's discretion on where and what those plaques look like.
Go ahead.
Mic's off. Yeah, there it's on. Now it's on. Red light.
I was on all the time. I hope I was not rude. The general meaning of consultation is not veto. So I was quickly able to pull up the clause. Can I do it again? So the clause says in a form and style as approved by the city. Actually, I'm just going to pull up the wording again. Sorry. The city reserves the right to install a designation recognition plaque on the property in a location and style determined by the city in consultation by the owner. So the way that's phrased, the word consultation it's not equal to determination. It means there has to be some meaningful participation, and that's, the way we have in other contexts. The law has identified the meaning of consultation. So it's participation at a meaningful level, but not a veto. Is that helpful?
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so now I'm looking for someone from the committee to make a motion on the properties. Okay, Anne, and I need a seconder. Okay, Jennifer. All right, so now we have the recommendation for the designation before us. So are there any final comments or amendments? Go ahead, Jane.
Okay, I'll get this right yet. I want to say thanks to Ryan for providing the background on the meeting last year. Appreciate that. And just for the sake of the new committee members, last year a number of properties were brought to Heritage Kingston for designation with the same wording that's on these properties today. That is under the heading non-cultural heritage attributes, the statement elements that do not contribute to the property's cultural heritage value include all interior features. And just so you know, last year the committee supported the amendment to the motion to delete all interior features because the wording gave the impression that these features had no value, which was not the case. This was subsequently passed by council. The deletion of the words all interior features was not intended to convey that heritage staff or the committee would have any oversight on interior features. Owners of designated properties and the committee should understand that only specific interior features that are stated in the cultural heritage attributes section would be considered attributes and therefore subject to heritage guidelines. So owners can make their own decisions regarding the restoration and retention of all interior features unless these features are stated in the cultural heritage attributes section. I believe I have that right. Today, we are again discussing the same messaging and under the heading of non-cultural heritage attributes, the statement, elements that do not contribute to the property's cultural heritage value include all interior features. Again, this wording gives the impression that these features have no value, which is not the case. In addition, my concern is that this wording can give the wrong message that the interior features have been assessed and have no value, which is also not the case. This amendment is intended to clarify the wording in Schedule A and so that owners, the council, committee, council, and public understand that interior features can have heritage value but have not been assessed. It also is intended to provide consistency from last September's meeting to this September's meeting moving forward. I hope that the committee will support this motion.
Okay, so, good. Okay, I was just checking to make sure it was up there on the screen. So the motion to amend is before us, moved by Ms. McLaren and seconded by Mr. Gower. So where descriptions and criteria for designation include interior features in the list of non-cultural heritage attributes, the reference to interior features be deleted in Schedule A of Exhibits B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K to report HP 23030. Okay, so any questions or comments with regards to the amendment? So we're just considering the amendment, and then we'll go back to the original motion. Anne, go ahead.
I'd like someone to give me an example of how this amendment would affect a specific situation. Could someone give me that?
Okay, would a member of staff like to take a stab at that?
Thanks, Madam Chair, and through you. In the case of these particular bylaws, as I mentioned, the interior features were not assessed. So removing this note in the non-attributes will essentially not have any impact for these bylaws. The cultural heritage value that is determined, or that is present for these properties, does not include interior features. It's spelled out that it's the associated value, or it's contextual value, or it's physical form that has the value, and not anything on the interior. So by removing this, there's really not going to be an impact to these particular bylaws. I hope that answers the member's question.
Does that help, Anne, or were you looking for something else?
I guess I'd like to know about a specific example of something that would be affected one way or the other by this amendment. Like maybe give the example of a staircase or something, or just to give me some idea of what the impact either way of this would be.
Okay, I think I know what you're asking. So is there actually going to be any impact of including or not including this particular clause? And I think perhaps what we're trying to understand is actual impact versus perceived impact. So perhaps somebody could address that.
Through you, Madam Chair. In an instance where all heritage attributes have been identified as, where all interior features have not been identified as heritage attributes, any future proposed development on the interior would not be covered by the bylaw. If those interior elements are not discussed at all within the bylaw, then a potential development application that includes a heritage impact statement may identify those features in the interior as potential heritage attributes.
Okay, Anne?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments on the amendment? Gunnar, go ahead, and just move the microphone close so we can hear you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have problems with the wording, non-cultural heritage. Is it heritage or is it cultural? I think there's confusion in that. That's item one. Two is, a lot of the buildings that I believe have interior attributes that are certainly heritage and are of value. I don't believe they're identified right now. Before anything can be deleted, they should be identified rather than in the generality as stated for 10 different, I guess, issues. I think this is B or A to K that refers to the 10 properties. I think they need to be identified before this can be done. And I think perhaps non-cultural should be removed from the wording if it's applied at all. Thank you.
Okay, staff, could you clarify what is meant by non-cultural heritage then? I'm hoping that we can get clarity around this so people understand what it is we're actually talking about in the amendment.
Through you, Madam Chair. To my understanding, there's some clarity required regarding the word cultural and why it's included in this definition. And if that's the case, then cultural heritage, to my understanding, is a definition as opposed to natural heritage, and is often used when describing architectural or cultural heritage landscape features. And that's my assumption, is that that's why it's included in this definition.
Does that provide some more clarity, or do you have a follow-up question?
Can I have a clarification on that, please? My hearing edition isn't here today, so humor me, please.
Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair. So, sorry, further clarification on that is my interpretation of cultural heritage attributes as opposed to simply heritage attributes is that it's defining these features as cultural and not natural heritage. Yeah. Which are outlined by provincial definitions.
Madam Chair, my feeble brain does not encompass non-cultural heritage.
All right, and we, over here, and then I'll come around to you, Peter.
Through the chair, in the statute, at the new section 29, which process we're exercising right now, there's a specific list of things that must be included in notice of designation, and one is a statement explaining the cultural heritage value or interest in the property. So the statute makes cultural heritage cultural heritage a concept in law. So the wording in the designations is an exception to that, which may be inelegant, but it's having to describe a negative, which is the positive statement exists in the statute, but there's no complementary negative version. So staff have created and kept in cultural heritage because it's about a statutory requirement.
Okay, Gunnar, does that help a little bit? It's not just you.
I'll pass, Madam Chair.
Okay, Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think part of the problem here, and as a seconder, I apologize for letting it go. I believe that the word, excuse me, the word "non" should not be capitalized because that is not part of the quotation from the Act, and the hyphen should not be there. We are simply talking about cultural heritage attributes that are not cultural heritage attributes. And I think if you read that, features in the list of not being would be the better way of saying it. But if we leave it as a small letter N and no hyphen, that should explain it better.
Okay, so Jane, are you good with that change? Peter's good with that change? All right, we're just going to do that as a friendly little change. So hopefully that helps clarify it. Are there any other questions from committee or comments on the motion? Peter, you still have the floor right now, so you're good. Okay, anyone else? Okay. Yes, you can finish up.
Thank you. I just would like to make sure that we're moving forward consistently from last year. And given what Ryan has said, that the staff is considering not having these words, all interior features, in the next batch of designations. I think for the sake of consistency and clarity, we should accept this amendment so that we can move forward on these designations. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? All right, and that passes with Gunnar and not. Okay, so we are back to the original motion, which is the designation of the 10 properties listed. So are there any further comments from committee? Questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the motion to designate, to recommend to designate. All in favor? And that passes. Okay, well, that's taken us very quickly through a large portion of our agenda. So there are no working group things, permits, approvals, permit reporting to committee. Are there any questions on the permit reporting? Okay, I see none. So we have a verbal update to committee, improvements to Dash. So, Mr. Leary, could I ask you to introduce this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly, I thought the committee would appreciate this update. In an effort to improve the usability, clarity, and functionality of for heritage-related applications, a series of updates have recently been made to the Development and Services Hub, better known as DASH, the program. So the major highlights include the 2 new heritage application types. The heritage pre-consultation is now a standalone application type. And you know what those are. Those are requests that come to this committee before the application is submitted. And the other application type is one we're calling Other Heritage Act Requests. It was formerly the designation application type, but now it incorporates new designations as well as new listings, new easement agreements, amendments and repeals to existing bylaws, as well as notice of demolition for listed properties will all be captured under this new Other Heritage Act request format. The new application types will help us manage and streamline these requests as they're now separate applications, are separate from other application types on Dash. Other improvements to Dash include providing additional and clear instructions on the submission process for applicants. This includes links to additional information and contacts to staff for support. And the inclusion of additional process status indicators for applications, so agents, the applicant, members of public can better understand where those individual files are at in the approval process. I would just quickly add, because I know it's on everybody's mind, no, this is not going to affect anything that this committee does in terms of reviewing and accessing and providing your comments on Dash. So that process has stayed exactly how it is today. So we're hoping these will make things a little clearer for applicants and a little easier for staff to manage files and maybe even a little more efficient. So these updates came into effect on September 14th, so just last week. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions from committee with regards to the changes to Dash? Okay, seeing none. There are no motions, no notices of motion, no other business, I'm assuming. I don't see anything. Okay, no correspondence. So the date of the next meeting is October 18th at 9:30 a.m. So just before we adjourn, I'd just like to thank staff for all of the hard work you're doing on the designations. I know it's taking up a lot of time, and to all the committee members for all the work that they're doing in reviewing it. I know that I appreciate it and the community does as well, so thank you. So with that, I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Oh, Alex and Jane, look at that. They shot right up, and I'm assuming everyone's in favor, so thank you, everyone. We'll see you on the 18th of October.
And thank you for all of your patience for today as well. Thank you.